There are over 8.7 million species living on Earth. For almost all of history, only one of them was intelligent enough to build civilizations. Us. Now erase that advantage completely, because the moment every animal becomes just as intelligent as humans, Earth no longer belongs to a single civilization, it belongs to millions. The lion is no longer just a predator. The whale is no longer just another creature swimming through the ocean. Even the tiny ant isn't simply following instinct anymore. Every species now has dreams, goals, opinions, families, and a future they want to protect. At first, that sounds like the beginning of a perfect world, a planet where humans and animals finally understand each other. No more fear, no more misunderstanding, no more pointless killing. But that's only the first impression. The reality would be far more complicated, because intelligence doesn't magically make everyone agree. Humans know that better than anyone. Just look at our own history. Wars, politics, arguments over land, arguments over resources, arguments over who should be in charge. Now imagine adding millions of intelligent species into that equation. Suddenly, Earth becomes the most complicated society ever created. The biggest surprise is that animals wouldn't suddenly become violent. A lion wouldn't wake up thinking, "Today I'm going to hunt humans." A deer wouldn't spend every second running away from wolves. A shark wouldn't attack every person swimming in the ocean. Why? Because intelligence changes perspective. Animals wouldn't see humans as food. Humans wouldn't see animals as livestock. Instead, both sides would recognize something they had never seen before: intelligent civilization. Different bodies, different instincts, different ways of living, but the same level of intelligence. From that moment forward, humans and animals would stop seeing each other as prey or predators. They would simply see another society, just like two different countries sharing the same planet. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone would live together. Quite the opposite. The world would slowly split into two civilizations: the human world and the animal world. Humans would continue building cities, businesses, and governments. Animals would build civilizations designed around their own species. Birds would create massive cities high above the forests, where thousands of nests connected together formed entire neighborhoods stretching across the sky. Whales would establish underwater capitals, using sound instead of roads to communicate across hundreds of miles. Beavers would become world-famous engineers, designing rivers and dams that even human architects would admire. Millions of citizens working together without traffic, without delays, and somehow without complaining. Actually, they'd probably make fun of humans for needing traffic lights. Every species would create its own culture, its own traditions, its own schools, its own laws. But despite all those differences, everyone understood one thing: without rules, everything would eventually fall apart. Think about it. What happens if wolves and deer disagree over territory? Who decides? What if elephants destroy a forest because they need more space, but thousands of birds already live there? Who settles that argument? What if humans want to build a new city where bears have lived for centuries? Who owns the land? The more intelligent the world became, the more complicated every decision became. It quickly became obvious that the animal world needed leadership. Not a king who ruled through fear, a leader respected by every species. Finding someone accepted by millions of different animals sounded impossible, until two names kept appearing over and over again: the lion and the tiger. The lion became the face of the animal world, not simply because he was powerful, but because he could unite species that normally wouldn't even stand next to each other. His greatest strength wasn't his muscles. It was his ability to lead, to negotiate, to keep peace between creatures that had spent millions of years as enemies. Standing beside him was the tiger. Unlike the lion, the tiger wasn't known for speeches. He rarely spoke unless it mattered. His reputation came from something else: discipline, strategy, and overwhelming strength. If the lion represented peace, the tiger made sure nobody dared to destroy it. Together, they created something animals had never experienced before: a government. Laws were introduced across the animal world. Every species had rights. Every species had responsibilities. Conflicts would be solved in court instead of through violence. Land disputes would be negotiated instead of fought over. For the first time in history, but survival was no longer controlled by instinct. It was controlled by law. And then everyone realized something nobody had thought about. If every animal is just as intelligent as a human, how can anyone justify eating them? Imagine sitting in a restaurant, looking at a steak on your plate, knowing the cow who once lived had friends, dreams, a family, maybe even children waiting at home. Suddenly, eating meat doesn't feel normal anymore. It feels horrifying. Within weeks, meat consumption across the world almost completely disappeared. Slaughterhouses closed, farms shut down. Entire industries worth trillions collapsed almost overnight. At first, many people celebrated. This is amazing. No more animals have to die. The world is finally becoming peaceful, until someone asked a single question. What about the lions? Or the wolves, the sharks, the eagles? Or every predator that had spent millions of years surviving by eating other animals? They couldn't simply become vegetarians overnight. Humans now faced the exact same problem as the animal world. How do you feed billions of intelligent creatures without turning anyone into dinner? The greatest scientific minds from both civilizations immediately began working together. Human scientists, animal scientists, engineers, biologists, chemists. Everyone searching for one answer, because solving world hunger was no longer humanity's biggest challenge. Now, the challenge was feeding an entire planet where nobody wanted to eat another intelligent being. And nobody knew if that was even possible. The first few months were surprisingly peaceful. Humans expected chaos. Instead, the world became fascinated. Television stations invited animals for interviews. Universities welcomed students from every species. Governments signed the first treaties with representatives of the animal world. For the first time in history, Earth wasn't divided by countries, it was divided by civilizations. And somehow, it worked, at least in the beginning. One of the first agreements was simple. Humans would respect animal territory. Animals would respect human territory. Crossing the border wasn't illegal, but entering another civilization meant respecting its laws. Just like traveling to another country, soon embassies opened between both worlds. Human ambassadors met with lions. Eagles delivered important messages across continents faster than airplanes. Dolphins became international diplomats, connecting underwater civilizations that humans had barely explored. Even technology began changing. Why build expensive underwater robots when whales already knew every corner of the ocean? Why spend billions studying forests when birds had watched those forests for generations? Knowledge exploded. Medicine improved. Environmental damage dropped dramatically. Entire ecosystems recovered because animals finally had a voice in how their homes were protected. It almost felt too perfect. Of course, living together also created some hilarious situations. Dogs still loved humans. That never changed. Except now, instead of chasing tennis balls, they negotiated salaries. One golden retriever became famous after refusing to play fetch until his owner agreed to 3 walks a day, unlimited treats on weekends, and every Friday evening off. Millions of dogs called him a hero for workers' rights. Cats somehow became even more confident than before. Except now they actually had arguments to back it up. One cat reportedly sued its owner for unwanted physical affection. The court ruled that surprise belly rubs counted as a violation of personal boundaries. The cat won. Nobody was surprised. Pigeons became professional city guides. After all, nobody knew every street better than they did. Crows started their own security companies. Good luck sneaking into a building when thousands of crows were watching from every rooftop. Meanwhile, beavers became some of the highest paid engineers on Earth. Human companies competed to hire them. Their only request? Payment in fresh wood instead of money. Nobody questioned it. Even the internet became interesting. Social media exploded with new creators. A sarcastic parrot somehow became the most followed comedian on the planet. An owl started a history channel that constantly corrected human textbooks. And somewhere, a raccoon accidentally became a millionaire after inventing the world's most efficient recycling business. Every day felt like the world had unlocked a new update. But underneath all the laughter, tiny cracks were beginning to appear. Because equality sounds simple, until money gets involved. Animals wanted jobs, real jobs, not just symbolic positions. A wolf wanted to become a police officer. An octopus wanted to work as a surgeon. Chimpanzees applied to engineering companies. Elephants became architects. Suddenly, humans had competition. And not just a little. Imagine applying for your dream job, only to lose it to an octopus that could use 8 tools at the same time. Construction companies loved hiring elephants. Heavy lifting became effortless. Birds inspected skyscrapers without needing helicopters. Search and rescue teams relied on wolves because their senses were impossible to compete with. Some humans celebrated. Others, not so much. People started asking difficult questions. Are animals taking our jobs? Should there be separate workplaces? Should humans get priority? The animal world had questions too. If humans can own land, why can't we? If humans can vote, why can't every species vote together? If humans can build cities, what happens when those cities expand into our forests? Suddenly, every answer created 3 new problems. Courts became busier than ever. Lawyers made fortunes. One week, a farmer sued a family of elephants for destroying his crops. The elephants argued the land had belonged to their ancestors long before the farm existed. Both sides had evidence. Both sides had valid arguments. Who was right? Nobody knew anymore. Another case became famous worldwide. A bear wanted to hibernate inside an abandoned mountain cabin every winter. The owner wanted it back. The bear argued he had been using that cave centuries before humans built the cabin. After weeks of debate, The court reached the most unusual compromise in history. The human could use the cabin during spring and summer. The bear got it every winter. Neither side was completely happy, which somehow meant the decision was fair. As strange as these problems sounded, they revealed something much bigger. Humans and animals weren't fighting because they hated each other. They were fighting because they were trying to share the same world, and sharing had never been easy. The lion spent most of his days meeting world leaders. The tiger focused on protecting peace between species. Together, they prevented hundreds of conflicts before they ever reached the public. But even they couldn't stop one growing problem. Resources. Food had become stable thanks to years of scientific breakthroughs. New protein sources had replaced meat. Predators adapted. Nobody had to hunt intelligent creatures anymore. That crisis had finally been solved. But land couldn't be created. Human cities kept expanding. Animal habitat still needed protection. Every new road, every new factory, every new neighborhood forced another difficult conversation. One side wanted progress, the other wanted preservation. Neither side was wrong. And that was exactly what made the situation so dangerous. For the first time since intelligence had spread across the animal kingdom, the relationship between both civilizations no longer felt effortless. Trust was beginning to weaken. Small disagreements slowly became political debates. Political debates became protests. And protests had a habit of turning into something much harder to control. Everyone could feel it. The lion could feel it. The tiger could feel it. Human leaders could feel it. The peaceful world everyone had dreamed about was starting to crack. The only question left was whether those cracks could still be repaired, or whether they were about to split the entire planet into two sides that no longer trusted each other. The protests grew larger every week. What started as peaceful demonstrations slowly spread across the planet. Humans marched through city streets demanding more space for growing populations. Animals gathered by the millions, refusing to let another forest disappear. Neither side wanted war, but neither side wanted to lose their future either. Governments held emergency meetings almost every day. The lion spoke with presidents. The tiger met with military leaders. Every conversation ended the same way. Both civilizations wanted peace. Neither civilization wanted to compromise. It felt impossible. Then, everything changed because of one construction project. A massive new human city was planned near one of the oldest forests on Earth. To humans, it represented progress. Millions of new homes, new hospitals, new schools, a better future. To the animal world, it meant destroying land that had belonged to countless species for thousands of years. Birds would lose nesting grounds. Elephants would lose migration routes. Wolves would lose entire hunting territories. The project became the symbol of a much larger argument. Who does Earth actually belong to? Construction equipment arrived early one morning. Across the valley, thousands of animals silently watched. No growling, no roaring, no panic, just silence. The kind of silence that makes everyone uncomfortable. Human workers looked at them. The animals looked back. Nobody moved. For nearly an hour, the entire world watched the live broadcast. One wrong decision could become the first battle between two civilizations. Then something unexpected happened. The lion walked forward alone. No army, no guards, no weapons, just him. On the opposite side, a human representative stepped forward as well. For several minutes, the cameras couldn't hear a single word. The whole planet waited. Finally, the construction vehicles turned around. Not because humans had surrendered, not because animals had won, because both sides finally understood something. If one civilization forced its future onto the other, neither civilization would have a future. That meeting became known as the day Earth chose cooperation. Over the following years, everything changed again. Cities were redesigned instead of expanded endlessly. Massive wildlife corridors connected forests across entire continents. Buildings were constructed around ancient animal habitats instead of replacing them. Some neighborhoods were designed for humans, others for animals. Some were built for both. Technology advanced faster than anyone had imagined. Humans contributed innovation. Animals contributed millions of years of knowledge about nature. Together, they accomplished things neither civilization could have achieved alone. Diseases that once seemed impossible to cure disappeared. Ocean exploration entered a new era thanks to whales and dolphins. Wildfires became easier to prevent because birds spotted danger long before satellites ever could. Even climate change slowed as humans finally began listening to the creatures that had lived alongside nature for millions of years. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be. Arguments still happened. Court cases still filled the news. Cats still believed they secretly owned every house they entered. And honestly, nobody could ever prove they were wrong. Dogs remained humanity's closest friends. Except now, friendship was finally a choice instead of ownership. That somehow made it even more meaningful. Children from both civilizations grew up together. A young boy might learn mathematics from an elephant. A young eagle could study engineering alongside humans. A dolphin might teach marine biology better than any professor alive. Slowly, the idea of humans and animals started disappearing. People no longer introduced themselves by species. They introduced themselves by their names. Because intelligence had changed something far greater than society. It had changed identity itself. Generations passed. Eventually, history books no longer described the moment animals became intelligent as the day everything changed. They described it as the day Earth finally became complete. Because maybe intelligence was never the thing that separated humans from animals. Maybe it was simply the thing that finally allowed both civilizations to understand each other. And perhaps the real question was never, what if every animal had human intelligence? The real question is, if another intelligent civilization appeared tomorrow, would humans truly treat them as equals? Or would history simply repeat itself, with different faces? Maybe that's the hardest question of all, because sharing a planet has never been about strength. It has never been about technology. And it has never been about who arrived first. It's about whether two completely different civilizations can choose respect over fear, cooperation over control, understanding over power. Because if they can, then perhaps the greatest achievement in Earth's history wouldn't be humans becoming smarter. It would be realizing we were never meant to build the future alone.